the Divine Journey podcast with Dr. Roger Paul. Episode Chapter 11 Michael's 7 Bestowals, the Ultimate Path to Understanding. Welcome, truth seekers, to the Divine Journey podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Roger Paul, and for over 50 years I've been studying and teaching the profound revelations found in the Urantia Book. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible stories ever told. The 7 bestowals of Michael of Nebadon, our Creator Son, who you know as Jesus Christ. Now, I want you to imagine this for a moment. You're the creator of an entire local universe, 10 million inhabited worlds under your jurisdiction. You have the power to rule with absolute authority, but instead, you choose to live 7 separate lifetimes, each one at a lower level of existence, culminating in being born as a helpless human baby on one of the most troubled planets in your realm. Why would any being choose this path? That, my friends, is exactly what we're exploring today. Let me start with something that might surprise you. Michael's bestowals weren't just random acts of humility. They were required experiences, a cosmic curriculum, if you will, designed to qualify him as the sovereign ruler of his universe. But here's what makes it remarkable. He didn't just go through the motions. He dove deep into each experience with genuine love and desire to understand his creatures. I've been teaching about this for decades, and I still get chills thinking about the 6th bestowal return. Picture this scene. Millions upon millions of beings assembled from throughout the constellation headquarters worlds of Nebadon. They're all gathered at Salvington to welcome their Creator Son back from his experience as an advanced Urantia being. The celebration must have been incredible. This was the 6th out of 7 bestowals. They knew they were witnessing history. And when Michael addressed this cosmic multitude, what do you think he said? Did he boast about his accomplishments? Did he speak of the hardships he endured? No. With characteristic humility, he simply said, "I have been about my Father's business. I am only doing the pleasure of the Paradise Sons who love and crave to understand their creatures." Think about that. After experiencing life at the constellation level for who knows how long, his response was essentially, "I was just doing what any loving father would do to understand his children." Now, between each bestowal, approximately 1.5 million years would pass. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about a timeline that stretches far beyond human comprehension. Gabriel and the other celestial beings knew for tens of thousands of years that the 7th bestowal was coming, but they had no idea when or where. And then came the announcement that changed everything. Michael had chosen Urantia, our world, as the theater for his final bestowal. Now you might wonder, out of 10 million inhabited worlds, why choose Earth? Why choose this particular planet for such a momentous event? The answer reveals something profound about divine love. Urantia had experienced what I call a double whammy of spiritual disasters. First, we had the Lucifer rebellion and Caligastia's betrayal, affecting not just our world, but 37 other planets in our system. Then we had Adam and Eve's default on their mission. As one of my students beautifully put it, the light shines brightest in the darkest world. Michael chose the most challenging circumstances possible for his final bestowal. He came to where the need was greatest. But here's something crucial to understand about Adam and Eve that many people miss. They weren't guilty of rebellion like Lucifer and Caligastia. They defaulted on their mission. They made a mistake and they knew it. They repented immediately, but the damage was done. And here's a principle from the revelation that applies to all of us. When you default on a trust, you don't get reassigned to that same position again. Adam and Eve couldn't continue their mission on Urantia. Yet, and this gives me hope for all of us, when they completed their mansion world experience, they were assigned as counselors. Even after defaulting, they were still considered valuable enough to serve in important positions. There's redemption for all of us, friends, even when we fail. Now let's talk about what made the seventh bestowal revolutionary. In all 6 previous bestowals, Michael appeared as a fully developed individual of whatever personality group he was incarnating as. A Melchizedek appears knowing he's a Melchizedek. A Lananandic son appears with full awareness of his nature and mission. But for his mortal bestowal, Michael chose to begin exactly as every human does, as a helpless infant who would have to learn everything from scratch. No divine shortcuts, no hidden knowledge. He would grow up just like any other Jewish boy in first century Palestine. This decision had profound implications. For the first time in all his bestowals, Michael needed a thought adjuster. Why? Because he couldn't be self-limiting as a baby while still experiencing genuine human development. He needed the Father's fragment to guide him, teach him, and help him navigate human existence from infancy through his growing awareness of his divine identity. Even more remarkable, after his baptism at age 30, when Jesus became fully aware that he was Michael of Nebadon, he continued to limit his divinity throughout his ministry. He remained Jesus the human, the son, the brother, the teacher. He didn't become Michael the creator son exercising divine prerogatives. This limitation continued even through his crucifixion and death. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something many people don't realize. After the resurrection, during those appearances to the apostles, they still weren't encountering Michael the creator son in his full divine nature. They were meeting Jesus, the man who was completing his mansion world experience. That's why there was a 40-day period between the resurrection and the outpouring of the Spirit of truth at Pentecost. Jesus had to progress through the 7 mansion world levels as a human being before he could fully resume his divine nature as Michael. The Spirit of truth couldn't be poured out while he was still completing his mortal ascension experience. And here's one of the most beautiful concepts in all of Revelation. When this process was complete, we didn't lose Jesus the human. His personality became eternalized through his now personalized thought adjuster. That thought adjuster embodies Jesus of Nazareth as a distinct being who will serve as our leader throughout eternity as we progress toward paradise. So Michael retains all the memories and experiences of his time as Jesus, but Jesus the man, with all his human understanding, compassion, and love, becomes our eternal guide as finaliters. Think about that. The human Jesus, who walked the dusty roads of Palestine, who felt hunger and thirst, who experienced joy and sorrow, who wept at Lazarus' tomb and rejoiced with the wedding party at Cana, that Jesus will be our leader throughout eternity. Friends, I've been studying this revelation for over 5 decades, and I still get emotional thinking about this. What kind of love does it take for the creator of a universe to choose to experience life at its most vulnerable level? To be born as a baby, completely dependent on human parents? To grow up learning to walk and talk and read just like any other child? Jesus experienced everything we experience. The scraped knees of childhood, the awkwardness of adolescence, the responsibilities of young adulthood. He knew what it was like to lose a parent. Joseph died when Jesus was still young. He understood sibling relationships, family financial struggles, the daily challenges of making a living as a carpenter. But more than that, he chose to experience life on a world devastated by rebellion and default. He came to a planet where the very concepts of divine love had been distorted by centuries of spiritual confusion. He came knowing that millions of beings throughout the system were watching, waiting to see if divine love could triumph over rebellion and despair. This wasn't just about saving humans from their sins. The Universal Father forgives sin. That's not the issue. This was about preventing the cosmic suicide of millions of beings who had been led into rebellion. Michael's mission was to demonstrate divine love and mercy so powerfully that even rebels could find their way back to righteousness. I get comments on our study videos from people who say this is all too complex, too hard to understand. Some even suggest that the revelation needs updating, that it's somehow outdated. But I believe this revelation is good for the next 1,000 years. We have enough information here to keep us learning and growing for centuries to come. The complexity isn't a bug, it's a feature. It reflects the incredible complexity and beauty of the universe we inhabit. When you understand that Jesus was not just a human teacher, but our Creator's Son experiencing mortal life, it changes everything. Every parable takes on deeper meaning. Every act of compassion becomes a demonstration of divine understanding earned through personal experience. Every moment of his ministry becomes a revelation of how divinity can function within the limitations of humanity. And here's what gives me hope in these challenging times we're living in. Just as Michael chose the darkest world for his final bestowal, the light of this revelation can shine brightest in our current darkness. We have tools today, like the internet, that can spread truth faster than ever before in human history. Yes, the same technology that spreads darkness can also spread light. The choice is ours. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought. Michael's bestowals weren't just ancient history. They're a living reality that continues to influence our universe today. Every prayer you pray reaches a Creator's Son who knows exactly what it's like to be human. Every struggle you face is understood by a sovereign who has walked in your shoes. When you're going through difficult times, remember that your Creator Son chose to experience difficulty. When you feel alone, remember that He felt abandoned on the cross. When you're uncertain about the future, remember that He lived by faith just as we do, but also remember this. Just as Michael's bestowals qualified him to rule with understanding and compassion, our experiences here are preparing us for service in the larger universe. The struggles we face, the love we learn to give, the faith we develop, all of this is part of our eternal curriculum. We're not just getting through life, we're getting ready for eternity. Thank you for joining me on the Divine Journey podcast. If this episode has touched your heart or expanded your understanding, I encourage you to share it with others who might benefit from these truths. Remember, we continue our studies 2 times a week now. Tuesdays and Thursday S for our sequential journey through the Urantia Book sessions, focusing on the life of Jesus, the 7th and final bestowal. You can find all our study sessions on YouTube, and I encourage you to join our community of truth seekers. We're all on this journey together, learning from each other and from this incredible revelation. Until next time, keep seeking truth, keep growing in love, and remember, you have a Creator Son who understands exactly what it means to be you. This is Dr. Roger Paul, reminding you that the divine journey never ends, it only gets more beautiful.